Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mental Toughness and Body Show. My name is Rob Evans, and I'm your transformation coach, health strategist, and internationally published author, helping take your life and your business, health, fitness, mindset, and body from where you are right now to where it is that you want to be. And today I've got a very special guest. It's Jacqui Brauman from TBA Legal Firm. Thanks for joining me, Jacqui.
Thank you, Rob. So good to be here.
It's a long introduction, I know. So, Jacqui, let's talk about mental toughness when it comes to law. When we have to contact a lawyer, it can be like, I don't know, it's like black fingernails down the blackboard. You're thinking about how much it's going to cost. But of course, when we need a lawyer, we're normally in high levels of stress for some situations. So let's talk a little bit about how you navigate this with clients, because it can be a really stressful time.
Yeah, you've hit on so many things that I think a lot of people in the legal industry don't actually consider, because our clients are usually in some kind of huge life challenge. It's not often that someone contacts a lawyer to do some nice work, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, it's nice when people are buying their dream home. But more often than not, yes, people contact us because someone has passed away, or someone is separating or someone, you've had some kind of service agreement and the person has failed to deliver on, whatever the promise was in the contract. And so, people come to us and they are stressed. Sometimes the issue was already escalated. There's potentially been some exchanges between people that has broken down a relationship. And so, I mean, there's a whole lot of emotion for people around the event that's happening, let alone then the fear that they're actually got to get in contact with a lawyer. And as you said, the fear of cost is huge. I think it's also the fear of the unknown, because there is this huge stigma that lawyers do cost a lot, and some do, and there is gouging in the industry for sure. But on the scale of things, I think a lot of people understand that tradies are probably the best paid people in a lot of industries these days. So, trying to get people to not be as afraid. And I think people put lawyers up on pedestals too much as well. And that's something that the legal industry also tries to monopolize on, because they like to keep their knowledge to themselves and they like to be perceived as the font of wisdom. But in fact, they're not. They are just people. You are consumers. And just like we're getting more and more familiar with getting second or third opinions in the medical industry, I think people should be doing the same thing in legal. I think people need to understand how lawyers charge, and you don't have to go with a lawyer that charges by the hour. No win, no fee lawyers often charge heaps more than anyone else. So watch for those as well. And I think, we should work with someone who we feel like we can trust and be comfortable with, rather than going with the first person and thinking, yep, they make me feel confident, and yet in fact they actually belittle you and they don't listen to what you say, and they have taken over the matter and don't even necessarily consult with you about the strategy.
Yes. No, I know you're a big advocate for working with women, and the conversation we had last time was around perhaps some different challenges that women may face compared to men when it comes to things like this. I suppose the immediate thing that would maybe come to mind is, in a relationship split and that kind of thing. But maybe tell us a little bit about your perspective, what you see. What are the different challenges that a woman may have compared to male?
And I suppose it's also minorities as well as women. I think that firstly, the fear is greater for women generally.
Why is that, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's because they take it more personally. I think men are really good at putting something in a box and going, well, this is actually a commercial thing. And if it is a service agreement and it's not something that's family related, yeah, that's exactly right. But women take business and they take deals and they take contracts personally, as if it's some kind of personal thing when someone fails to deliver for them. And so they have this greater sense of shame, I think, and they also have this greater sense that I'm going to be judged because I've done something here, so I don't want to go and be told how I've done something wrong.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that there's certainly that element. And there's some research out there that says over a 5-year period, women who have a legal challenge, of that block of people, 83% of those women do not even get professional advice at all. And 83% is just, I mean, that's a shocking amount. They are putting their heads in the sand. They're just giving their rights away. Whether it is fear of cost, fear and shame of judgment, all these things are all mixed together.
Do you think there's an element of family violence hanging over people, whether it be shame, whether it be fear, that's stopping them from taking that next step? I guess here we're talking about a divorce kind of situation.
Yeah, that's right. And look, potentially, and I think a lot of people, when you're in conflict, you're afraid that there is abuse or violence, but in fact, I think that there is a bigger conversation to have, that conflict is not abuse. And so to try and draw those things apart, yes, there's a lot of emotion in conflict, but there's a different set of people who have experienced genuine ongoing abuse throughout a relationship versus when you're in a period of conflict. And then I think generally, talking about women, I think a lot of us are brought up to be good girls. And so, we don't want to challenge anything. We don't necessarily want to stand up for our rights. We want to keep everyone else happy. We want things to go away and just placate the situation. And so there's an element of that more so than anything else as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like what you're doing is a little different to how most lawyers sound. Like even just the way that you're talking in these first few minutes is quite different to the language that you would normally expect. Are you doing some specific advocacy work in this space to kind of what's the words I'm looking for? I guess to make it easier, more accessible, more likable, I suppose, for people to take action. I know of one person in my circle, for instance, that really needs to get divorced, has been separated for 5-6 years, something like that, actually even longer, but is scared to get divorced because of what that will mean, because there's kids and stuff involved, but just scared of what that means.
And the uncertainty as well, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I've got some different training from most lawyers. I've gone and done collaborative practice training, which actually changes your mindset and brings to your awareness how much as a lawyer we are trained to sort of go down the litigation and advocacy role without thinking whether that's the best interest for the client or not. And in fact, most lawyers in a first appointment with a client will position them adversely to their own outcome. So we automatically in our heads think that it should go a certain way without actually exploring other options. And so that is that's part of my training. I've also done mediation training, which again is a form of dispute resolution where the parties actually make all the decisions, which is completely opposite to what a lawyer does as well, which is more often than not try to keep control of the matter and try to direct who makes what decision. So there's those couple of elements. But as part of my mental toughness to actually keep myself in the industry, because a lot of what I see I don't believe in, and I'm ashamed of what goes on in the industry as well, is that I do have this Access to Justice project that I sort of got started throughout the COVID period to try and increase, and I call it the legal literacy, particularly of women. There's a lot of people out there banging on about financial literacy, particularly for women. And yes, that's relevant. But I also think that if you don't have a basic understanding of the rules of the game. And if life is a game and lawyers know the rules, then, have a basic understanding of what the rules of life are through legal literacy. Then having financial literacy is not really going to help you much if you don't know those other foundational things. Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Well done. You've provided a nice segue to my next question, which is, you mentioned about your own mental toughness. And, we have a lot of people that listen to the show that are small business owners and so forth. And I think anyone that is in business knows that you would be crazy if you didn't love what you did, because why would you even start? Because it's so hard. But tell us a little bit about, you mentioned also COVID there, but tell us a little bit about what you've done with your business and how that's working in terms of what you did to restructure, relocate, etc. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, there's so much in that question, isn't there? And we do go into business sort of with rose-colored glasses on to some extent, because we don't, if we knew how challenging it would be, we probably never would begin anyway. No, that's right. And yeah, I went into being a law firm owner expecting that I would be able to shield myself a little bit from elements that I didn't want to come across in the industry. And yet that hasn't been the case at all. And in fact, now I'm shielding young staff because I don't want them to have the kind of experiences that I've been exposed to. And so it's very much about setting values and examples from the top, and actually having the conversations with people, like the kind of lawyer that you want to be, and calling out the behavior of other lawyers that we have to deal with, and actually having those conversations. So that, I mean, there's that element, and then there's the element of being a business owner, and having the burden of clients and staff, and then of course managing a business and marketing, and having the mental capacity to think about why I'm doing what I'm doing and where I want to take it. Because when you're exhausted with all those other things, your why can sometimes go out the window. And I probably was there maybe 5 years ago. I was like, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because actually I'm not fulfilled in working as a lawyer at all. I'm doing a hell of a lot of things that I don't like. And I prefer to be easing people's suffering rather than contributing to it, which it felt like I was contributing to the problem rather than solving problems, which a lot of my clients probably wouldn't say I was. But from my perspective, I wasn't doing good work. And so you then have those deeper questions, don't you? You start thinking, well, how can I do this better? What are my deeper values? Like, how do I work in my integrity? How can I give back a little bit? And so your why becomes greater than just, I want to run a law firm. It's there's got to be something more that keeps you going.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think in that you then started, well, how long have you been in business now?
Nearly 11 years.
So 11 years. So it's 14 for me. So think back 10 years ago. Would you say you fundamentally work differently with clients now, like you personally, the conversations that you have, your approach and everything is fundamentally different now than it was back then?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm far more, well, not only self-aware, but aware of what people are coming to me with in terms of like emotional challenges, and much more aware of the impact and direction that I have, because it is a relationship of power. And I don't think that I truly appreciated that as a younger lawyer.
I know in the work where I spend most of my time, transforming people's health, wellness, and so forth, from when I very first began, it's fundamentally different to the way that I do it now. And that part of that has been, I guess, life changes, COVID, people are focusing more on their health now rather than, a specific result than before. But certainly going through all the challenges with my daughter as well, it's made me more empathetic and more understanding towards what people actually go through. And I want them to, say, go at this pace, but they're only really ready to go at this sort of pace. And so I meet them where they are. I think that's a big difference for me in doing that. And you find that you continue to attract those people that you want to work with, as opposed to those that are just tire kickers or whatever. Tell us a little bit about the challenges that you have in running business remotely, and why you made that change over COVID. Well, just recently, but because of COVID, I suppose.
Well, yeah, no, COVID has opened up the possibility of being actually able to be less physically present, I guess. I've always had multiple offices and locations, and so my staff has always been fairly spread, but I always thought that I had to be physically present and sort of go between offices and always have a physical touch point. And I think particularly with clients and particularly in a more regional setting, people still like to come in to see you.
Yes.
Particularly, women over 60, they'll get dressed up to come and see their lawyer. They'll put their pearls on. And so COVID has really challenged some of that as well and made people realize actually you can work with a lawyer from anywhere via Zoom. Like seriously, you don't have to
meet me.
Yeah, no, we don't have to see each other. We don't have to sit across a table. I mean, lovely if we do, but really. So, yeah, most things happen via Zoom now. And it was a mindset change for me from a staff perspective, understanding that maybe I was micromanaging a bit too much, or maybe I thought my presence was more important than it actually is, because it's been a relief to realize that actually my staff know what they've got to do and they just do it.
Well, I was about to say, what are the challenges that you fears, what keeps you awake at night, I suppose, in knowing that you aren't there, and like human nature seems to be that you get a room full of people that aren't being supervised, closely, and depending on what KPIs they have to report and so forth, they will just over time they'll naturally become less productive. So how do you what are the things that you should put in place? How's your fear, anxiety level over what's happening, not happening when you're not there?
I'm more worried, I think, about the service level and the people actually giving the clients the level of service versus them meeting their KPIs. I think fundamentally lawyers are fairly A-type personalities, and so you set them a goal and they will strive to exceed that without much external motivation. So it hasn't been so much a problem with me worrying about KPIs as the care that I want people to take, going that extra step. And I guess it's cultural. I guess the level of service that I want is embedded culturally, and I'm worried that the culture will slip. That's the most worrying thing.
Yes, right. Okay. So I haven't asked this question for a while, but what do you think you learnt about yourself during COVID?
Oh, I'm not sure if it was the COVID pressure that taught me more about myself as a leader, or it was just because I was already sort of on that pathway of thinking about it deeper and change and thinking of, well, how do I want to lead and those sorts of things. I think, and it's still a journey that I'm on, because I feel like over the last 3 years I've made so many mistakes as a leader, and so I'm learning particularly to take people where they're at. I feel like I've learnt a lot from being disappointed and having really high expectations, and so not exactly as you said before with working with people who you want to accelerate. I can't accelerate someone's professional growth, and so coming to terms with that and nurturing them where they're at instead of pushing for something else. So I mean, I think I'm less frustrated than I ever was, because I don't want to say I've got lower expectations, but it's a little bit of that. I'm not as pushy.
Okay. All right. Greatest failure and what you learned from it?
in some respects, I feel like I'm still in the middle of my greatest failure. I jumped straight into a business deal last year, knowing that I'd be less present. I wanted more senior people and to try and, take people to start taking some responsibilities. And my biggest failure has been trusting the wrong person. It is crushing, and the consequences have still not completely played themselves out.
Nice lead into the next question, which was around relationships. I don't see most lawyers as great networkers, great relationship builders outside of their pretty close proximity, whether it be physical, like there's an accountant's office next door, or whatever, or a couple of real estate agents and they try to pick up the conveyancing work and that kind of thing. Just interested in your perspective on the importance of relationships in business and how you go about building and nurturing them.
I think that that's something that I've had to learn a lot as well. And I think you're right. Lawyers tend to build networks from the perspective of wanting them to be transactional. Whereas after a couple of years in business, I joined a couple of women's business networking groups so that I could learn what others were doing in other industries, and learn from them that way. And they have created some of the best relationships that I have. And I didn't go into those groups thinking about, well, who can I meet to exchange business with? It was a place of being able to learn from them and then just forming relationships. And then all of a sudden, I've got all these people that actually know what I do, and they're happy to refer people to me when it wasn't even my intention in the first place. Like, I was already getting so much value out of those peers than any transaction could provide. And I think, again, that was just a learning experience. And I'm not sure that can be taught, or the value of that can be taught. But that's certainly just being able to stay, and they're true friends, they're not,
yes.
Because I've got some of those relationships where, I know the real estate agent, and I'll go above and beyond for them. I know they're sending me work, but if they've got a quick question they want to ask, of course I'll do that for free.
Yes.
So there are those elements as well. But no, it's the deeper relationships where you actually can pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got this staff issue. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a human as well. How do you reckon I go about this, or whatever might be needed?
What's your perspective on loyalty? And so I'm just going to assume that there is one. The last person that was disloyal to you, what did you learn from that?
Loyalty. I tend to think that it's on the decline. Because I think people want things faster and cheaper, and so they'll continue to look for that. But if you can provide a genuine connection, which I think is really difficult when you're pushed for time, but if there is something where you can do extra and provide just that extra level of care, I think that builds some element of loyalty just because of the good experience. But again, from the perspective of staff, it has rocked me a little bit to think that I feel like I invest a lot into staff, and then they don't
take it
acknowledge
personally
it
when it's your own business, don't you? It's
That's
like, I can't
right.
believe you did that.
Exactly. Or there's no acknowledgement that actually I'm providing more than any other small business would in the same situation, and you still think the grass is greener.
So what do you think you've learned from that?
Well, I think I overinvest because one of my values is learning and expansion. That's what I like to do. And so maybe I shouldn't think that everyone else has that same value. But on the flip side, I don't think that I communicate what I'm providing to someone is over and above. I just assume that they understand that it is,
Yes.
which they don't.
Yeah, I think when it comes to staff, at the end of the day, most people just seem to be chasing the dollar. And if they can get $1 an hour or something somewhere else, they will, and forget every year and ounce of blood, sweat, tears, education, inspiration, motivation that you've put into them. And they say, well, I'm going because of this. Like, really? Gee. So all that just meant nothing. I think that can be quite hurtful. I'll tell you what it's taught me, and then maybe we could talk about in closing about the inner circle. I keep my inner circle really, really small. So there's only a few people on my inner circle. Because what I've learned is that the more people that you have in your circle, the more chances you've got of someone being disloyal. And I've had some things happen to me that I just, like, people to make up stories, like complete lies about you for you. I don't even know why, but just because of whatever's going on in their life, their world. And it's just made me realize, wow, I am slower to trust. Now, it takes a lot longer to trust. And I will probably never partner with anyone in business because I've only got me to blame, and other people will just always let you down. In the network that I deal with, they say your biggest problems will always have a first and last name. So if you think about any problem that you've got right now, you probably say, yeah, that's true. So what's your thought on your inner circle and keeping that tight?
I tend to agree completely with what you're saying, and yet on the flip side, I feel disappointed that I am like that. I really want to trust, but I've always been, even before I was a business owner, I've always withheld more and been more protective, I think. And so that's continued on. And so, as you say, you've got a close circle. I think I'm the same, but I wouldn't even call it a circle. I would say there are people that are close to me in certain elements of my life, and I'll go to them only for those things, but they don't know much more about me.
Yeah.
And they're people that you can 100% trust on that one little section of your life, but you don't actually share the other facets of who you are.
Yes.
And so I've got people in my life that I exercise with, and I share my goals for fitness. I've got people that I share my marketing goals with. Then I've got people that I share like the structure of my business with. I've got people that I share my spirituality with that no one else would even know about. And so it's very faceted because that element of trust. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I've similar, with my lawyer, for instance, there would be things like if I needed him right now, I just call and say, bang, this is what's going on. What can what can we do? We are friends, but I don't hang out. And so there'll be, many aspects of my life that he wouldn't know. He probably knows a lot as well, because we've known each other for probably 14 years, but there are certain parts that you don't. Like my dentist, trust them a lot. There's many things they do know about me, but a lot that they don't. My coach, he probably knows the most about me. But there's very, very few people. So closing question for you. If people would like to get in touch with you, because you can work with anyone, anywhere, because as we've just said, you've got a Wi-Fi connection and you can connect with them. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you? And I will put the links below this podcast when I post it. So.
Cool. Thank you. I mean, if you feel like I'm someone that you could work with as a lawyer through the law firm, of course, by all means, all my email address and contact details are available on that website, tbalaw.com.au. But from an element of doing the legal literacy stuff, finding Legally Wise Women on Facebook and looking at the free webinars and things I do is probably best for those people to get a safe landing place to see if I can help point someone in the right direction. So yeah, the Facebook group and page is probably the way to go for that side of things.
Yeah, fabulous. And so thanks so much for the conversation today. I've really enjoyed it, Jacqui, just like our last one that we had. Thanks so much for giving up your time today. And I will post this in the next couple of days. And
such a pleasure.
I look forward to sending some business your way.
Thanks so much, Rob. And likewise, I love your podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Jacqui.